And you're recording. Okay, no problem. Sweet. Thank you for holding. Do you mind going to the next slide for me, Charles? Okay, so again, just introducing ourselves. My name is Andrea Grabner. I am marketing specialist at UniWyo Credit Union. Who's heard of UniWyo? Probably seen it over on the street. We have a location here on campus that's closed during the construction, but we're usually on campus. So I'm actually a graduate of UW. I got my master's last spring in higher education administration. I got my undergrad at a different school in Virginia. But when I got my first degree, I didn't know this about myself, but I was a first generation college student. And I actually had the pleasure of working in SEO when I first moved to Laramie. I worked for Upward Bound. It was my first job in Laramie a couple of years ago. So I'm always really excited to be involved with any TRIO program. And so happy to join you here today. Charles, do you want us to?
Yeah, I'm also a graduate of the University of Wyoming twice now. Got my undergrad and graduates from here. Lived in Laramie for the last 6-7 years now, and I just like coming to campus, talk to people about financial literacy, because there's a bunch of stuff that I didn't know that I wish that I knew when I was in my undergraduate degree.
Yeah, cool. So one of the biggest reasons we're here today, next slide, if you will, is because we are a credit union rather than a bank, and there's some differences between that. Does anybody know the difference between a credit union and a bank? That's okay. I actually didn't. Yeah.
Credit union and service personal, but people not the bank.
Absolutely. So credit unions are financial cooperatives, which means that our members own us. So when you join a credit union, you put $5 into a savings account, something like that typically, and then you have equal ownership of every single other person who has an account at that credit union, rather than being owned by like a board of trustees. We do have a board who helps us make decisions, but they're volunteers, and ultimately our members have to vote on everything. But if you'll go back really quick, I apologize. Another part of being at a credit union is that we're pretty involved in our community. So we're financial co-ops, we're not for profit, and we also are we participate in a lot of community programs. Part of that is our You First Promise. So this is ours specifically at UniWyo. At UniWyo, we put people first, our members, our colleagues, everyone in our communities, and all we do, even the smallest interactions, we aim to better people's lives. So would you go to the next slide for me, please? That's the reason we're here today. So really, the purpose of today is to help empower you to make your own decisions, make good decisions for you, whether you're a member at UniWyo, whether you'll be one in the future, whether you'll be a customer at a bank, a member at a different credit union. All of those things are great and okay. Whatever is best for you is what we're here to help empower you to make those decisions for. So not trying to promote UniWyo as like a credit union you should join, but that's where we're from. And we'll talk about some details of today's services and products from the viewpoint of UniWyo, because that's where we work and we're familiar with those products and services. But really, it's just empowering you to make decisions for you. Okay, budgeting and why it's important. So a pretty good amount of you raised your hand and said that you're currently using a budget. I think from any class that I've ever done, high school, adults, or college, the largest percentage of students in a classroom raise their hands for budgeting. So good job. That's huge. I did not start establishing good budgeting habits until after college for sure. Which was a mistake on my part. It made things a little bit more difficult, right? So budgeting why it's important, if you would. I think that you all are probably familiar with a lot of this, so we're going to move through it quickly. So your budget is your income versus your expenses, right? So basically, you want to track how much money is coming in, how much money is going out, and where it's going, right? But that's important for how you're spending your money, how your lifestyle is balanced, how you're meeting your goals, or maybe how you're not meeting your goals and you want to do a better job of that. That's what a budget helps you with. Typically you pick a time frame like a month, although it can be different for students, right? Especially if you've got money coming in a very different way. Like typically in a salary job or an hourly job, you get paid bi-weekly or once a month. Many students get large amounts of money in the form of financial assistance, through loans, scholarships, etc., once a semester. So your budgeting might look a little bit different. But typically you're picking a time frame that you're working within, and then it gives you control. And again, it allows you to meet your goals, really, because that's what it's all about. Budgeting, your money is used as a tool, and it's there to help you live the life that you want to live. And to do that, you have to be strategic sometimes. Okay, so we're going to watch a short video on one budgeting method. So we always like to give the caveat, right, that there are a lot of different ways to budget. There's the envelope method, there are different tools you can use. Excel if you're an old soul. money manager if you're a little more technologically advanced. But this is one that we're gonna use for the purpose of this presentation, one that we like. However, I don't think that it's super strict. It's the 50-20-30 rule. And you'll notice it's the first thing that comes up on your handout. You guys can refer to as you watch this very short video. But just keeping in mind that this is the general guideline for budgeting that we're going to use during our class today. There are many other ways to budget. There are ways to adjust this so that it works personally for your life, but this is what we're going to explore today. Oh, and we'll see if the sound cuts down my work for us.
If you want to budget with flexibility, the 50-20-30 method could be perfect for you. And you don't have to give up your network to do it. It's simple. Figure out how much money you take home after tax. Then divided by the spending habits. Cut that amount in half. This and take 50% of the budget and needs. Right? Also adding in debt, credit card, loan payments. Your needs are anything you need to survive because the impact of credit score that you pay. So your gym membership actually. Now, on to that 20%. Put that out when you're buying a promoter. That might be something that wasn't that can pay off faster or contributing to your 401k. Or savings. Speak to rainy day fund. Finally, everyone's favorite market dogs. 30% of the over here. Here's where you can add a membership or budgeting to have. Makes this one of our efforts.
So super short and sweet explanation of what this budget method looks like, the 50-20-30 rule. And as was explained, could everybody kind of hear that? I know it's brief, maybe a little quiet, but basically, you're looking at your full pizza, right? Your budget is your income versus your expenses. Your full pizza is your income. And when you're deciding, asking yourself, like, is my budget balanced right now? This could be a good starting point, right? When you're looking at, like, how many people live off campus, right? Okay, so can you remember the first time that you rented an apartment? You're probably trying to figure out how much you could afford for rent. I remember that like vividly, trying to decide like, okay, like I want to live at the apartment building that's all inclusive and has a pool, but can I afford to live at that place? And the answer was no to me at the time. So I feel like those very real questions that come up in your life, having a budget, understanding how much money is coming in, where it's going, helps you make those decisions. Like how much rent on an apartment can I afford? And that's going to be one of the themes of today's case studies. 30% for fun and 20% for savings. Another thing that I really like about this method is I think what it teaches you how to make some of those big decisions, right? Like how much can I afford for these things that I have to pay, but also how can I live a balanced life? So I always use my sister as an example because she's not here, she's my sister, so it's fine. I would argue that my sister's budget is not very balanced. So she's got some really big goals. She wants to buy a house in Florida and Tampa. And that's a huge goal for her. And obviously that's awesome. Like she should save up, she should buy a house. That's an incredible goal to have. However, I would argue that her budget leaves her very little room for fun. So I think when you're in a place where your budget, and maybe your fund doesn't look exactly like 30, your fixed expenses are not exactly 50, your savings are not exactly 20, but the I guess goal, right, is to make sure that you're including room for the things that you want to do, the things that make you happy. I don't think that your budget should make you miserable while you reach your goals. I think that including space in your budget for the things that you want, like your shoe habit or your gym membership, allows you to stick to your budget in a better way. So my sister, for example, she really wants to buy a house. She doesn't leave a lot of room for fun, but I think that's a really frustrating way for her to live month to month. And so every once in a while she'll splurge, right? And so I think it makes it, in the end, a little bit harder for her to ultimately meet her goals because she's not able to really track month to month what's making her, like what's giving her the happiest life of dividing up her pizza into these different sections. So we are going to walk our way through a case study. Oh, excuse me, why it's important. So I think we talked about this a little bit already too. Having a budget is going to prevent overspending in the ways that you don't want to for your own goals. Also fraud. Has anybody checked their like debit card transaction history in a while? Yeah, have you ever found something on there that was like surprising or you didn't know you were paying for anymore? What was it that you found?
Oh, I found out somebody got my card information and they were starting to make small purchases and then they emptied my account.
So it's like insidious too, the small purchases, because you might not even notice until, yeah, they empty out your account. I am a huge sucker for like HBO, short term, 6 months free, watch Yellow Jackets, and then completely forget about it, and then all of a sudden I'm paying $20 a month. Reasons that like budgeting and keeping track of those things will help protect you from some of those schemes and from somebody stealing your information. It helps you avoid financial stress and uncertainty, and again, helps you make your big decisions in your business. Okay. So I think now we're gonna get into the case study. I know there's a lot of talking at you guys, but the activity for today that we're gonna participate in together is called Budget or Bust. So Charles and I will be reading for you guys for just a moment to tell you how it works. So in this case study, you will take on the role of a trusted friend, helping to create a budget and make an important financial decision. You will analyze current spending, assist in creating a budget, and offer suggestions for how to manage a variety of financial stressors. So who has ever taken on this role in real life? Like, has anybody ever provided like some financial like advice to friends? What was your situation?
That it's this whole bet that I did. He was getting like this veterans paychecks and social security and stuff. And it was for like $1,200 a month or something. And I was like, we could like figure out how to make you like live comfortably, but he was kind of homeless. He had a room to stay in, but he was like still hungry, you know, like there's a lot cheaper options you can move to. And not be taking as much for your room, and you get more food, and actually you can become clean, so.
Yeah. Have you guys ever heard the expression? I hope it's not, I've heard it before, I agree with that. You ever heard it's expensive to be poor? You ever heard that? I feel like in some of those situations, right, like your society will sell you things at a certain price and makes it kind of difficult to live on like a really tight budget. And it's really clear that for your friends help them. Well, so did you feel like that experience kind of taught you like about your own habits and stuff, like, or like you reinforced some of those habits?
Yeah.
For you, yeah. So becoming a teacher is one of the best ways to learn. So that's what we're going to be doing in this case study. All right. So, oh, it's actually you can stay on the previous one for a while. Yeah.
Alrighty.
We're fully hand out at this point. So, case study: budget or bust. Does anyone have any questions before we get started? Carrie is a recent college grad with her first full-time job and is learning about how to manage her money. She tries to save money each month, but at times ignores her finances because she gets easily frustrated and overwhelmed with them. She has just had a curveball thrown her way with an increase in rent. So she decides to call her trusted cousin Bryce, who has a strong understanding of money management. We don't have to leave, do we?
No.
Okay, all right. I think we're good. That was shorter than I thought it was gonna be. That's good. I thought the alarms were gonna go off in the building. Like when you're in like middle school and the fire alarms. Times are different now.
They are.
Future is now.
Things are changing.
Okay, so back to the story. So Carrie, recent grad, right? She just found out that her rent is going up, but her cousin Bryce is gonna help her. Hi, Bryce. Do you have time to help me with a money issue?
Yeah, what's going on?
My landlord just called to let me know my rent is going to increase from $900 to $1,200 in the next 2 months. He said something about an increase in HOA fees and taxes, so he has to increase the rent. But I love this apartment. It's close to work, close to my boyfriend, and there's so many great amenities. With my school loans and other bills, I can't afford to continue living here.
That's tough, but you can definitely make it work. I've got some errands to do near your neighborhood later, so I can come over beforehand and we can create a budget to see where you can come up with the extra money. Go ahead and gather all of your financial documents together and I'll be over soon.
I appreciate your help so much. I've never created a budget before and it intimidates me. Are you sure I need one?
Bryce arrived within 30 minutes and was ready to help Carrie get started on organizing her budget. In order to figure out if you can afford this increase in rent, you have to create a budget, Bryce instructed. So, what response should Bryce say to Carrie's last question? What is the importance of creating a budget?
I think I need to give them something like that. Pardon?
Are you asking that question?
Oh, yeah, I'm just about to drop you guys the documents. I'm so sorry, I forgot about that.
Oh,
Is that what you're gonna ask?
no, I was gonna answer your question because I use Excel spreadsheet for my budget. And if,
Oh, yeah, perfect. Yeah, we're gonna give everybody a couple minutes to write their thoughts and then we would love to hear from you.
okay,
Use driving that. And then to the folks on Zoom, I just dropped in 2 documents. The one that's labeled student handout is what the other students in the classroom are looking at. And then there are exhibit handouts that'll get kind of handed out as we go through the case study. So you'll get to look ahead. But let us know if you have any trouble with this. Cool. So if you feel like you got a pretty good answer, go ahead and turn to the person closest to you, groups of 3 or totally fine, and let them know what to do. You might have to scoot over a chair or 2. All right, we're gonna bring it back up front and together. And let's hear from Jolene. So Jolene, what response would Bryce have for Carrie's last question of, is it important to create a budget?
I think it's important because I started doing it because I couldn't figure out where my money was going. It was just disappearing out of nowhere. So I put all my receipts and copy those and put them in the spreadsheet too, and it works.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Jolene. That's perfect. I mean, especially in the case of this story between Carrie and Bryce, right? Carrie's first inclination, right, is to panic and say, I can't afford my apartment anymore. But maybe she can. She just doesn't really know where her budget is going. She doesn't really know if she's spending 50% on her fixed expenses. Maybe she can afford that increase in rent to keep an apartment that she really loves if she wants. Okay, number 2. What documents and information do you think Bryce will need to see in order to help Carrie create a personal budget? So maybe for all of you that have a personal budget, jot down just like a couple things, like when you were creating your budget for the first time, or if you're going to redo it now, like what are you gonna need to look at to figure out what your starting point is? Yeah, sure.
Your electric bill, your bills, your gas bill that you need for your dog, car, income that expenses like if you're in shoes or clothing or.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You just hit multiple, right? So you started out with gas and utilities. What are your fixed expenses? So figuring out like that 50% of the pizza, right? What am I paying on each month that I have to pay on each month, or I could lose my apartment or my credit score could go down, right? So fixed expenses. And then in addition to that, like what am I spending money on, like for shoes and things? So what's something that you could look at to determine where some of that money is going? mentioned it earlier.
Your like your receipts or your bank statements.
Your receipts, your bank statements, you can get on your online app for your bank, your credit union and look at your transaction history. So expenses, right? What else are we gonna need to determine our budget?
Your paycheck.
Our income, yeah, paycheck, in the case of students, maybe scholarships or financial aid, those types of things. Expenses, looking at all of that. Very good. Okay, so, okay, that makes sense, Carrie says, as she sits up straight and rolls up her sleeves.
Bryce explains the first step in creating a personal budget is to calculate income. Carrie is on salary and paid bi-weekly, so her paychecks are the same each pay period. She logs online and pulls up the most recent pay stub for Bryce to view. What information from Carrie's pay stub is important to know and use when creating her budget? And Andrea is passing out the pay stub right now. For you guys folks on Zoom, if you go to one of those files, I think it's in the exhibit handouts, that's where you'll find the pay stub.
Yeah, so as you get Karen's pay stub, we're gonna finish some of this pretty quickly, so does anything stand out to you? So look at that. All right, what's standing out on Carrie's pay stub? The net pay, what's the difference between gross pay and net pay?
Well, your gross is before your, or your money's being taken out of your government.
Yeah, exactly, so gross pay is like your overall pay, then when your insurance and your taxes and other things are taken out, that's your net pay, your take home pay. So exactly, net pay in the bottom corner, that's really important for us to know. Something else that stood out to me on this is her pay period. So we can see that this is from the 1st to the 15th of May. So we know that she gets paid twice a month. So when we're thinking about a budget for a month and we're trying to determine what Carrie's income is, we're gonna take her net pay and multiply it by 2. Great. Perfect. Sorry. Number 3, so what information from Carrie's pay stub is important? So her gross pay, her net pay, knowing that she's paid twice a month, right? So we can get that, like overall monthly income for our budget.
Now that they both know how much money they're working with, Bryce says the next step in creating an effective budget is to track expenses. He says that in order to create a budget and see where Carrie can find extra money for her rent, they have to see where she spends her money each month. Carrie uses her debit card for most purchases, so she can somewhat easily track her monthly spending by looking at her bank account transactions. She prints her last bank statement, credit card statement, and pulls out her most recent receipts to give to Bryce. She loves to shop, so her clothing expenses are a bit high. She charges an average of $300 per month on a credit card to her favorite store. Clothes, clothes, clothes. Her minimum monthly payment on this account is approximately $20. She must pay at least this amount each month, but strives to always pay it off in full. Analyze Carrie's credit card statement and bank statement. How would you describe her spending habits?
So take a second and look through Carrie's bank statement and credit card statement. Charles, could you actually pass out the next one?
Yes. Is it Alltown Bank?
So you've got her credit card statement and Charles is gonna pass out her bank statement. We're gonna take a second to just determine what some of Carrie's spending habits are. You guys, these answers too, just, I don't think you do that. If you feel like you got some answers for number 4, some ideas about Carrie's spending habits, go ahead and turn to a partner and let them know what you wrote down. I say that. Yeah, right, like more specific. Like, restaurants and stuff.
Stuff is just.
Yeah.
So. That was like, I think it's going to be like a good one. Yeah, that's pretty
$80 for you, $40. 80 bucks.
That's a big pet. So what about that? I think that's been on the sometimes, but during some two back habits. Right, not to be
Small things. I mean, like, even if she just stops buying as many clothes as she did, usually it'd be like.
Yeah, great.
This is. It's an awful everyone, which is fun, but.
Would you guys
Yeah, she did.
Really like Friskies. I mean, I assume they do that. It's often.
Right. Oh, and if you've already started doing that, or you don't have to, I'm gonna give the answers. Sorry. I know. My answers are probably great. I really have these ones. I was good them out. It's so often. All right, cool. So let's bring it back up front. What from Twyla and Lone, right? Tell us what you noticed about Carrie's spending habits.
Spending a lot, going out to eat, going out to do stuff. I guess for new bills.
Right, so she's got this ultimate goal. If my rent has gone up, I want to keep my apartment. So she's got some wiggle room in there, right, to figure out like, okay, like, am I going out to eat tacos too much? Like, can I reel that spending in? Does it work better into a budget if I'm paying attention to it? Things like that, you're good. What about, I'm so sorry, I didn't take your name.
Maya.
Maya, sorry, is that what you said? Maya, we talked a little bit about the credit card statement, what were some interesting things from that?
She's only using it for clothing and she's paying it off. You know, which is good. $300 in clothing months is a little bit unnecessary.
It would be, right? Yeah. So a really good habit that Carrie currently has is that she's paying off her credit card every month. So what does that mean for her?
Good advice.
She's got a good credit score, right? Or contributes to her credit score. She probably has a pretty good credit score. It also means that she isn't paying interest as she makes these payments, which is good. The question is maybe, does $300 a month in clothes work into that well-rounded budget that helps her keep her apartment? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. That's what she wants to figure out, right? Anything else that we noticed from the credit card statement or the bank statement?
I think she's leaving us $300 on it.
Sorry.
She's leaving. Money's not first. Cause I mean, so you got a previous balance of 301, which spends 305, and she'll pay like 300, and then this balance of 300. Because then the credit line is still on that 1691.
Her new balance is very on this. Thank you. Okay, mistake. Apologies. She's not paying off her credit card. Month to month, she's spending about 300 and she's paying it off, but then she's putting another 300 on it. So what does that mean for her credit score?
Yeah.
It's probably, I mean, it's not helping it. You know, it might not be like giving her a huge negative impact, but certainly not helping it. And it also means that she's paying interest, right? Okay, sorry about that. Good catch. Okay, so we already know that she is spending $300 more than she actually has of her income on clothes. So it's an important part about credit cards, right? And we talked about with Maya, I think. Maya? Yeah. When you think about your credit card, and this is a good point that you made too, your credit card is not a part of your income, right? So when you're thinking about your pizza, when you're establishing your budget, your income versus your expenses, that $300 or the $2,000 that she has on her credit card available, that's not a part of income, right? What was the suggestion that you had for credit cards?
Like using your credit card for expenses that you know you can pay off, like gas.
Yes, exactly. So using your credit card for fixed expenses that are a part of your budget that you know you're going to pay off to help build your credit score, to avoid paying interest, and not to get into a situation which actually we find very is it. Very good. All right. So as far as those numbers on the next question, I am going to give you the answers. So do you mind rolling up this screen just a little bit? It's on the other one.
This one.
Yeah. Did anybody do the math? Well, I'm saying no, no. Totally fine. Good, so you can't check my math. Because this is for performance purposes. Okay, so we've got two sections under ideal and actual, right? And again, when we talk about ideal, this is for the sake of using the 50-20-30 method. Her ideal might actually look a little bit different, but for the purpose of this case study, we're thinking ideal is 50-20-30. So we know that her income, and I'm gonna leave off the change, we're rounding up here, is around $3,558 a month. That's her net monthly pay. If she was going to follow the 50-20-30, right, and with that balanced idea of a budget, she would spend $1,779 on her fixed costs, $711 on her goals, savings, goals/savings, and then $1,067 on her wants. So if you do the math, and your math lines up with mine, this is what her budget actually looks like right now. So still, again, $3,558 for income. She's spending $2,236, which is actually 63% on her fixed / needs, 550, 15% on her goals, and 845 for 24% on product. So as her budget currently stands, right, she's evaluating her credit card statement, her bank statement, and thinking about that 50-20-30 rule. This is what she's looking at. So immediately, right, Bryce is helping Carrie. What's something that stands out that might not be quite right about this? 63%, right? We already know that her fixed costs are a little bit higher than maybe the concept of the 50-20-30. Where is her rent going to fit in? Fixed costs, right? So as her rent goes up, this percentage of her budget, these fixed costs, are gonna go up even more. So we already know that Carrie can see immediately, she's gonna have to make some changes, like that increase in her rent doesn't automatically fit into a balanced budget. She knows that she's gonna have to make some changes, some adjustments to make sure that that works. All right. So, number 6. Carrie and Bryce work through, and they have a proposed budget. Do you mind handing these out for me? Carlos is gonna come around and give you the budget that Bryce and Carrie come up with to try to fix some of these issues. Carrie questions whether she should be paying her credit card in full each month. That $300 payment would help cover her rent increase. She questions whether she should start making minimum payments on her credit card and use the remaining money towards her rent. If you were Bryce, how would you respond? What advice would you give Carrie? So let's assume that Carrie is still paying off her credit card. She's thinking, hey, like I can still spend $300 on clothes. I only have to pay $15 on my credit card, really. What's wrong with that thinking? You can go ahead and jot it down. When you feel like you've got an answer, you can share it with your shoulder. So what are the consequences of making a minimum payment on a credit card? We talked about them a little bit already.
Well, you're gonna have to pay it off sometime.
You're not gonna pay it off sometime, right? Does this go away?
Yeah, I was about to say, just kind of saves off negative effects, so it's kind of a temporary fix.
Mhm. It's a temporary fix. It's harder when you're considering that it's part of your income for the next month to account for that, right? You're gonna be paying interest. Right, yeah, it's a really easy way to get yourself into a little bit more debt than you need to. What was your name? I'm so sorry. Leticia had really great advice for how to use a credit card as a tool, and it's the opposite of what Carrie is considering right now, right? A credit card as a tool is not a part of your income, but using it for fixed expenses like gas or groceries and paying it off each month is the best way to use a credit card to build your credit. If they're for emergencies, right? Like maybe you have to get new tires and you need some more income than you currently have that month, and then you make the payments and you pay it off as fast as you can. Because sometimes you need financial tools for emergencies, but in general, it's right way to use a credit card. Okay, Carrie and Bryce.
Carrie and Bryce have a mutual friend who's moving back to the area for a job. Carrie mentions the idea of taking on a roommate to help save money and compensate for the rent increase. Bryce explains that this will help with the cost, but there are several factors to consider before taking on a roommate. Before Carrie can make a decision on whether to take on a roommate or whether she can get the extra money for her rent, or where she can get the extra money for her rent, she has to create a monthly budget. Bryce and Carrie work hard at going over Carrie's fixed and flexible expenses and generate the budget below.
Okay, so the budget that you guys received.
How much money does Carrie have left over after creating her budget?
So we know that this is her income each month. So after creating her budget, how much money does she have left over surplus? About $52, right? So that's not bad. She's not in the negative, right? You've got so like when you're thinking about spending your whole pizza, right? All of your income, It's not like spending it all, right? But what could she do with that $50? She could contribute it to her savings goals, right? She's already got some savings goals worked into it. But that's like the zero balance budgeting concept, right? At the end of the month, you're left with no money technically, but money goes into your savings, or like you've allotted all of your money to different areas. So very good. If Carrie decides to continue living on her own, how can she alter her monthly budget to pay for the $300 rent increase? Give specific suggestions. So without combing through the bank statement, which we just kind of glanced at, but just thinking about some of the things that you saw on there, some of the habits that we know that Carrie has. Jot down real quick, like if you were talking to Carrie, what would you tell her she should do to potentially be able to consider staying in her apartment? Like what are some changes that she can make? If you'll remember, Carrie's rent increase is going from 900 to 1,200. The example budget that you guys have shows her rent at 900. So this is like her budget, how to balance her current budget. So to figure out how she can stay in her apartment, what change could she make to allow her rent to actually be $1,200 and still remain a balanced budget? Give everybody a second. But then yes, please. And if you feel like you've got some pretty good suggestions, go ahead and your shoulder partner and let me know what you got.
Let's give it to $90 and over the into streaming services. It's $50-$60 restaurant, it's gifts. You know, I don't know which is. Just what do you want?
I was saying about the yeah. Finding out.
For fund budget.
All right, one more minute, then we'll bring it back to a full short.
She wants to live above the means, like she's gonna have to sign some places.
Wanna give one of these to everybody? Write their name on it. We're almost done for the day. I'll let you guys out here soon. Charles is coming around and give you a sheet of paper because I didn't know if you knew this, but we're gonna raffle off 2 $50 prizes. Thank you for coming today. But as we finish up this lesson, there are some habits that Carrie can change to have a more balanced budget, maybe keep her apartment or make some different decisions. Nick, what were your thoughts?
I was like saying, cuts and the stuff that you need to investment.
Oh, yes.
What was that?
We cut out our investors.
Did everybody hear Nick's answer? Can you tell us one more time?
She can cut out her investments, and she has to work on her debt first.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe your goals are a little bit different right now. Maybe she's not. Maybe she's not contributing as much to investments. She's making some changes about how she wants to pay off her debt. Very good.
Also, to negotiate with the custodians going through the plans, like see what's cheaper, like what how they can change it and get that one.
Very good answer. Has anybody ever threatened to turn off their cable? And we're like, no, you can actually have it for $20. So you can actually negotiate those things. You try, you negotiate different things like car insurance. If you have like renter's insurance is usually fairly cheap, but calling her utility companies and seeing what packages might be available or changes might be able to make. That's a really good one. Any other changes? Yeah.
This one's like kind of minor, but she could drive less if that was possible. She had like a bike and some stuff.
Adjust her transportation costs. Maybe it's like the summer and she actually finds that she likes biking to work. Maybe that's a change that she does like.
And then she might have to spend money on the changes.
Yeah, right, 2 for 2. Yeah, maybe she finds that, I don't know if you guys do, but I call it my yearly donation to a gym. When New Year's comes around and I decide that I'm for sure gonna go to Planet Fitness, and I for sure would never go to Planet Fitness. But yeah, determining that she's been using her gym membership. What did you guys think?
Just sit down on the phones and figure out where she does not have to like grocery bills. So
Yeah.
like she can eat it.
Yes.
On that actually also clothing, if she didn't want to like cut down on buying clothing, she could like get into thrifting or like sell clothes that she's not.
Yeah, exactly. So there's this thing that she wants. She wants new clothes every month. So she have to put $300 on her credit card and close to get it. Right? So making those adjustments or changes, like maybe she finds that she's still getting what she wants out of her budget. She's so happy, but she's shopping at UniWyo and she gets to stay in her apartment. Very good. All right, cool. So let's see. Last question we'll go through quickly. So if Carrie decided to get a roommate, how would this alter her current budget? Right? So how does getting a roommate change your situation?
Well, the landlord has to approve the roommate, and depends on the, they, what's the cost, or it's just deducted from not much. Minimum cost or.
Oh, yeah, like if there's like a master suite,
Or.
there's one, or like a regular bedroom, that could be differences. So it might not cut her rent exactly in half, but could make the change there. Very good. So maybe we don't know. So we have like, we could determine an approximate amount of money that it would save her. What are some other things to consider when you're thinking roommates? Does everybody have a roommate?
Well, like, how well you know the person.
Do you know them? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Looks like we have some wisdom from the back on roommates.
I think a big thing to consider with roommates, just in financially, is that oftentimes when you purchase utilities, only like one person, 1 or 2 people can go on that utility bill. And those utility payments, if you fail to pay them, report to your credit. And so, I forget her name, but she already has utilities set up, so utilities will probably stay in her name. So then she is waiting on that roommate each month to either log on and pay their half or to pay her back.
There's like no trust.
Yeah, so there's an amount of trust, the roommate will pay her back, and if they don't, then she's kind of SOL.
Also paying back.
And she's paying that, or if the roommate is responsible, she's able to have that roommate to utilities, if the roommate doesn't get on and pay their half, then that isn't hit to her credit.
Yes.
My credit took a big nosedive when I had a roommate who did not pay for their stuff. And I did not have the money to pay for that myself.
Yeah, super important thing. So Carrie in her imaginary situation, but also college students, very real situations of affording to live where they want to live. Roommates. I had 4 roommates at one point. What a terrible mistake that was for me personally. I've had roommates that one of my college roommates was my maid of honor. Another one of my college roommates, we would probably pretend like we didn't know each other. We passed each other on the street. It goes both ways. But an important thing to consider of how does this work into your finances and also your happiness, right? Very last one. Did anybody think of another solution that Carrie and Bryce didn't think of, maybe one that we didn't talk about, something that you currently implement in your own budget something that you might start implementing in your own budget, or something that you think that they should change? So that Carrie can either, you know, she can make a decision of if she wants to live in her apartment or not.
One needs a secondary income, also residence, so that is, you spend investing.
Yeah, just carry a side hustle. That's very, I haven't heard that one before. That's a good suggestion.
That and then like, I like to allocate my savings into everything else, so like making sure I reach like 20% or if I can more, before I like move on to the rest.
Oh, that's really interesting. So that's important. So like so in your own budgeting situation, your most important thing is like, I know I want to save. And then other things fall in below that. So I feel like that's a good example of when you think about the pizza, you're 50, 20, 30. And maybe it's not exactly 50, not exactly 20, not exactly 30. You know that yours is going to be 20, and then your fixed and your wants adjust from there. Does anybody else have something interesting that they use in their budgeting?
Just her events that she goes to. That I like to go more for like free events or just activities that are lower cost.
Yeah, finding things that you like to do that maybe aren't as expensive.
Like me and my friends instead of going to like a movie night, we choose our own movie and we all go to like something's house and like that's a lot cheaper and way more fun.
Right, yeah, your own movie night, your own house, rather than going out to the movies, yeah.
You can also look at reworking the car payment, however that is. Cause I know sometimes when you take out the car payment and then your credit improves, you can go in and you can get like a lower interest rate, so that lower your monthly payments, depending on what the car should be paid off.
That's true, yeah, so refinancing on a loan, yeah, and so that's a big part of like, you're teaching us all about credit today. But so, you hear right now that like housing prices are really high and like housing, like, you know, home loans are high. So let's say that you didn't have quite the credit that you wanted for an auto loan or a home loan or something else that you have a loan for, or maybe you're just at a point in time where you want to buy a house, but rates are high. You can always go back and refinance, either when rates go lower, or maybe you've improved your credit score and then you can make changes. So yeah, she might have some other options there within the budget. Very good. Cool. All right, well, we're gonna draw, and then we're gonna get you out of here pretty much on time. Sorry, I couldn't get you out any earlier. Does anybody else have any other questions or anything that they'd like to add to the group? Yes, for sure. No? All right, well, thank you guys so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. It was really nice to meet all of you and see some familiar faces again. Did everybody fill out? Nope, you can keep it or recycle it. Everybody filled out a thing with their name? Okay. And then we'll do 2 for you folks online as well.
There's also plenty of food.
Charles, did you get Jolene?
Yes, I got it.
Okay, perfect. Keep it together. We also, I totally forgot, we brought you fidget cubes for answering questions, and everybody gets one. Well done. Those fidget cubes are awesome, by the way. They're really fun. Oh, this is really one that's on zero and done. Okay. Oh, I was gonna put them in.
Oh, I just stuck them all towards the same side.
Okay, Tyler, who's our first winner?
Skylar Woodruff.
Woo! Skylar.
And Christian.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you guys for coming. Hi. Skylar, Christian. Absolutely.
My credit score is stagnant. So, that makes sense. I've almost for you. Yes. We have short things and yes.
Okay, no, not this again.
Yeah.
Yes, you would.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, I mean, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I saw your name in the email here. I was like, I know Looks like you've seen Naomi today.
Absolutely, still kicking around, we got full staff now,
Nice.
so we have all 5 of us.
Let's hop around and stop recording.
Oh, yeah, I forgot we were recording.
Oh, yeah, it's up here. Oh, it's getting out. And more, oh, it's moving backwards from on the top. Okay. Yes, that's what I want.
So